Akash is built on a foundation of hyperscale. A lot of times, the chips like H100s are not good yet for inference. Nvidia, I would say, is a new chip business. Akash is a repurposed chips business.
Today's show is brought to you by Mezzo, a new home for Bitcoin holders to cultivate Bitcoin and grow wealth together. Use your BTC on Mezzo to unlock real utility and honest yield. Join Bitcoin's first open source economic layer today. All right, the co-founder of Akash Network, Greg Osuri, back on Coinage with us. Greg, so good to see you again, man.
Good to see you again, Zach. Always a pleasure.
Yes. It's exciting. Akash, one of those projects that we've covered quite a few times. Actually, the Coinage validator right now, you can stake with Coinage X Dike and stake your Akash. And Greg, it's been a while since we had you on, but I think for those who maybe haven't seen our coverage in the past, obviously one of the exciting projects in the AI decentralized cloud space, a project that actually has real utility here in crypto. And you guys have been cranking. I think it's worth checking in because not only can we talk about what Akash is actually trying to do, but we can talk about all the progress that it's made as a crypto project in terms of now staking available through crypto.com as well as the Coinbase listing, everything that's happened since. What are you most excited about right now when it comes to Akash Network?
Just the impact Akash is making in people's lives that I did not anticipate it will. And I think general sense of where we are from an adoption curve, right? We are in this incredible moment in time where I feel like Akash is going to have an exponential growth in terms of usage because of some of the innovations that we've been working on for so long coming alive very quickly. But before we get into that, I really wanted to thank you folks, Coinage, for being such an active member and exposing news that people don't want to touch. I saw a tweet from you recently about a SEC a hearing or a deposition. And I want to make sure people know that Coinage is running a validator on Akash, and I stake some of my AKT with Coinage validator. So in case you're considering,
Hell yeah, baby.
Yeah, you should definitely consider staking to Coinage because that's how we support this channel, and they're being very forthcoming and very proactive about exposing news. And I want to thank you first, and I'm going to be staking a little more of my AKT as we go. And it looks like you can stake your AKT directly from crypto.com and other centralized exchanges as well. And so lots of good stuff on the regulatory front I want to talk about today too. But so many aspects of Akash I think we would love to cover. But yeah, most exciting thing is the user experience and the incredible innovations we're doing to really, really put Akash in the next stage. And we are in that moment in time. So great to be sharing all that good stuff with you.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things to get into this time around because obviously we've covered from a high level why it's important to have kind of what you guys are building, especially as AI becomes more and more important. This idea of, this AI arms race and where people might go for their GPUs or compute. And, there are metrics, I suppose, that we can dig into, Greg, because you're talking about the UI experience and kind of how easy it is to maybe onboard people relative to, a few years ago when we first started talking about Akash on Coinage. And I'm curious what metrics you're most watching now because, looking at the stats right now, you can look at GPU capacity up quite a bit. You've talked about that being a key breakthrough. Daily USD spend is maybe a metric you look at. That one's kind of a bit down. And you've got active leases also potentially. I mean, what is the thing that you think moving forward, now that you've kind of built this nascent platform, maybe not so nascent anymore, supply and demand side? I mean, what metrics are you looking at and what should people keep their eye on as we talk about Akash moving forward in 2024?
So these are good metrics. These are very, health of the network. Of course, it's going to be non-linear because that's how organic metrics look like, right? We do get spikes. We do get, sort of like, expansions and the opposite stuff, right? So it goes up and down. The overall health of the network is on an uptrend, right? So if you look at active leases now, we have 800 active leases. That's 800 different applications, right? And that was on average about 400 not too long ago, right? So that was a few months ago. So that's on an uptrend. Of course, the revenue is we had a spike because machine learning workloads tend to have uh, non-linear usage because a lot of times people will train, and once they're done training, you're not using as much GPUs as you would normally use for inference. So there's a mix, and it's a good amount of diversity in terms of workloads that we're attracting, and that's on uptrend, right? That's very important. But I think the trend has been, even though it's positive, it hasn't been exponential, and I think
Hmm.
that is really where we are looking at, right? Like, how can crypto in general, Akash, as a leader, really deliver an experience that's far superior, not matching your centralized experience, but far superior than your centralized experience? And I think that's been the holy grail for crypto, because as we like to say, crypto is simple to use when it comes to money transfer and whatnot. Of course, crypto is incredibly better user experience, even though the onboarding might be challenging. In fact, getting crypto is challenging, right? But once you get crypto, the experience is amazing. And same thing with Akash, like, so once you have AKT and a hot wallet, be it Kepler and whatnot, using AKT and deploying something with Akash is just straightforward, right? For the most use cases. But the question is, what happens to people that don't have crypto or don't know what a wallet is and don't want to go through the pain of backing up your keys and
Hmm.
all that stuff that we're we we recommend people do, right? And the challenge, I think, is like we take like catch all approach to security. We treat like every wallet is should be as secure as every other wallet, right?
Yeah.
So when we onboard a user, we be like, hey, you gotta use your ledger and back up your ledger, and that experience just takes 1 hour, right? So
Yeah.
imagine someone brand new that want to get some GPUs and Akash come to the Akash console and be like, install this wallet and back up, and you got to remember. It takes, what my experience, at least half an hour to an hour to onboard a user,
Hmm.
guided. So we figured out how to cut that half an hour to 1 hour time to 90 seconds or
Which is pretty
less.
important. I mean, I think if you're talking about that, and I think part of it, as we covered, didn't have you on to cover it, but we definitely did cover it, was this brev.dev edition in terms of kind of, I guess, as you're describing, sounds like at least, um, kind of abstracting away some of the pain points, shall we say, for our Web 2 friends in the space.
Right. So, two major pain points for activation for Akash. Activation is a first experience a user incurs, the aha moment, because once you come to Akash and get the GPUs that you wanted, that you can get anywhere, people love it. People are just like, "Wow, this is groundbreaking," right? But challenge is, how do you get them to their aha moment with these with these friction points that we have? First friction point is installing a wallet, right? So to use Akash, you need to have Kepler or a Leap, and you need to back up your wallet. And there's a whole workflow from a Kepler standpoint that costs you at least good 20 minutes, right? And once you have Kepler installed, you need to get AKT for paying for deployments or even for gas, right? Even though you use USDC, you still need to pay AKT gas. So
Hmm.
two new capabilities that were introduced in Akash. One capability has been around for a while, but we haven't really used it. It's called auth or authorized spend. Another capability is what we call fee grant module. So what these two capabilities let us do is really deliver an experience where when the user lands on console Akash, there is a hot wallet created for them automatically in browser, and that wallet is authorized to spend some amount of AKT to deployments. So this way, the user doesn't need to install a wallet or get AKT to use Akash. And
Hmm.
within one click, there will be, and third innovation we brought forth was ability for containers to behave like virtual machines. What that means is, so Akash, to go a little bit technical, not too technical, but Akash is built on a foundation of hyperscale, right? if you remove the layers, it uses something called Linux containers, and these are innovations. Really, I think Google was responsible for making containers very popular because Google's biggest strength is scaling, right? And Google was able to scale to Google scale because of containers. So we leveraged that technology to build Akash. My background being in Kubernetes and whatnot. Um, but so Akash is really meant for hyperscale and really easy to scale for to massive levels, but not so good for simple use cases like, hey, I want to just run a Python script that does some machine learning, right? Most
Yeah.
researchers just want to run their Python scripts, and they want SSH access. They want it to behave like Amazon, AWS, the simple, get me an SSH and get me a virtual machine. Because nobody wants to, even though people want to invest in containers, once they know, well, I have something working, and now I can take what's working and put that in a container, package it, right? So what we're
Well, I
asking
wanted
people,
to, yeah, I
yeah,
wanted to ask you about that too, though, because there's been an interesting report out from Barclays recently, kind of looking at where we are in this adoption cycle, and everything you just described sounds like it would enable kind of AI agents and the rise of AI agents now, where you don't really need to, ad hoc handle all of what you just described. It could be pretty easily done in 90 seconds. And so I think we have a chart, Texas, of looking at kind of the timeline that Barclays thinks we're at relative to the timeline of mobile adoption and where we are in the AI arms race. Basically, the very early innings is what the chart says. And as you think about the rise of what Akash enables and where we are in this AI cycle, I mean, what does that say about the bullishness of what people should be looking at when it comes to a platform, a project like Akash Network?
yeah, we're like, I don't know how exactly to compare to this cycle, but we are probably like pre-browser stage for Akash when it comes to adoption. When you compare that to internet, like
Wow.
Akash doesn't even have a browser level innovation yet, which I think this new capability is a browser for Akash. Because the reason I say that is when browser came, I remember using internet before the browser, right? When it was BBS and was just terminal access. When browser came, it just showed you can do hypertext. That means visuals, images, all the good stuff, multimedia stuff, um, on in this program, which was not possible before, right? So, and what Akash is showing is with this new capability, it's showing that you can have a fully private, fully lightweight, non-custodial, and that's key, right? It's very, very important. Non-custodial interface, and get an experience much better than what you're used to in your traditional cloud.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that's not possible on the traditional cloud, right?
Yeah.
Just from a user experience standpoint. So imagine getting 8 H100s in 90 seconds. Like literally, I mean, I
Well,
have a
I
video,
mean,
right? Like,
before the race of AI, I think there might have been a lot of people who said, "Well, why would you ever need to do that, or why does that even matter?" But now, considering kind of where we are, I do think when you've got all of these different companies now jockeying, who really need that in the timeline that you just described, there was an interesting, I think, when you dig into the report, though, and I'm curious to get your take as someone who's now closely watched a lot of the AI arms race. Barclay's main takeaway was that a lot of it is overhyped, that we're more in the FOMO stage of kind of everyone spending cloud AI capex. That was basically the headline. I think you can see this, Texas, is this report is that essentially we are in FOMO. And that based on their preliminary work, that right now AI capex, basically all the money that these big companies are paying, is enough to support the existing internet plus 12,000 new ChatGPT scale AI products. So I saw that number and I was like, holy shit, that's a lot. I mean, do you think that there is some risk that potentially it's too big, that they are saying this could be a 2000 era like run up in AI, or do you see the potential and the need for this to
no,
continue scaling?
not even close. I mean, I actually disagree with Barclay. I mean, I think the report is very rudimentary. You can't really say 12,000 new GPT-4 style, right? Like, uh, it's not apples to apples. Well, so let's do that. So, okay, the rate at which models are evolving is so fast that the and the demand for compute is gaining so quickly that the supply chain is not catching up. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's literally no chips. Like today, if you want to get H100s, right, from Nvidia, it's a little easier than what it was a year ago, but not even close to uh, the delivery times you want. It takes about 6 months to get Nvidia chips, like 3 to 6 months, right?
Mm-hmm.
The latest ones, and you can get the older ones much quicker, right? So yeah, we have a lot of underutilized supply, but the supply is for the older chips, the A100s, right, or V100s. Interestingly, what's happening is, so a lot of these older chips are not bad, So a lot of times these chips are used initially for training, right? Training tends to be the most computationally intensive
Yeah.
activities. Once training is done, you have to inference. So you got to use that whatever you train to deliver value to the customer. That's inference, right? So or fine tuning. For a lot of times, the chips like H100s are not good yet for inference, but the older chips, be it V100s or A100s, are great for inference because people have retrofitted the models uh, to be good for inference, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times we see a resurgence of A100 interest, even though Nvidia end of life A100, but people want A100, right? So what that means is there's a bigger demand for used chips than new chips,
And I wanted to
because
ask you about that too, because I feel like that's where Akash separates itself from kind of the Nvidia story, right? And it has been interesting to maybe see. I mean, we can look at the charts. It's been interesting to track how Akash is traded versus Nvidia because I feel like it's almost like a levered play you can look at in terms of why your guys' project trades in lockstep, maybe potentially with Nvidia. Texas, we can bring those charts up. I think it is interesting because over a larger time scale, I was like, oh, wow, okay, look, we got Akash exploding well beyond one of the most talked about tech stories of the
is it
last year
Nvidia
in
or Akash?
Nvidia. I mean, it's
Oh,
crazy. And then you look at
yeah.
maybe the next chart just year to date, and it's like, there seems to be something happening here recently. And of course, crypto trades differently than stocks. But how do you look at it, Greg, as a founder in this project? I mean, what do you kind of differentiate Akash from Nvidia like when you're talking about a
So
marketplace?
Nvidia, I would say, is a new chip business. Akash is a repurposed chips business, right? So like we're like Nvidia is in the new car business. We're in the old car, used car business. So and they go up and down. So there are a lot of times, of course, the demand for new chips is not slowing down, right? These new models are coming out. Like the B100s are apparently 30 times faster, or sorry, uh, 3 times better than the H100s, right? So for certain use cases, but a lot of people want older chips for older in the sense like previous generation A100s, right? Not
Hmm.
they're still like pretty good chips for inference, right? So and Nvidia, and if you look at whole macro commentary on markets, right? None of this is financial advice. It's just my opinion, what I think it is. Nvidia is literally saving the U.S. economy. It's the most valuable company in the world, and I mean, it is literally saving the S&P 500, right? So, and it is trading like a meme stock, right? It is nuts. It has 10% movements on a daily basis, right? And when you have such a massive asset trading with such high volatility, the folks with higher risk appetite are going to prefer Nvidia over crypto. I think Nvidia's ascension is bad for crypto in a weird way, because people would prefer Nvidia over trading Bitcoin or crypto in general, right?
Hmm.
So in that angle, if you look at, yeah, Nvidia's overperformance actually was bad in the last 1 month to 2 months for crypto, and Akash obviously, is follows the crypto land, right? Everything goes
Hmm.
together. So we can't really compare performance because it's really about folks that have high appetite to risk and where they're deploying capital and they're looking for NVIDIAs, and then the whole essential meme stocks, right? With Roaring Kitty coming back, and
Yeah.
people are like looking at GMEs and whatnot. So the Wall Street took a lot of the risk capital allocation over the last 2 months. So and crypto didn't. Once those highly volatile assets, be it Nvidia and the gang, settle down, and that's when you see crypto, right? Settle down in the sense like not move as much as crypto is moving, right?
Yeah. I think it's interesting too. I wanted to ask you this too as a crypto founder, because there are a lot of things that you can be excited about. You're not only building, again, a real project that is doing something, but also you're navigating a team to do all the other crypto stuff that you got to do, which is, look legit, act legit. There's been listings on Coinbase. You can trade it in New York now. Pretty huge. I'm looking at that tweet. There's a lot going on. I mean, for you as a founder, Greg, it's a lot to do. But I'm curious which one you're more excited about in the roadmap. All the things that you're talking about from a product perspective, or all the things you're talking about now as Akash, as I think included in Grayscale's top 20 projects as well. I mean, it seems like there's a lot happening. What are you most excited about?
So I mean, if you ask me, I'm a builder, so I'm going to be always excited about building and new capabilities. And like for me, I mean, I call myself a builder for builders, right? So when other builders use Akash, that is the most satisfying aspect of Akash. And of course, price, all that is just it's an outcome of all the work that we've been doing when it comes to adoption for Akash, right? We don't particularly focus on price. I mean, it's you can't, right? You cannot operate in that mindset, right? Of course, the liquidity is important for Akash to work as an ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
The better liquidity, the better functionality, and better incentives, and it actually builds into functionality of Akash. And from that aspect, we're very conservative, or not conservative, but we are very risk averse uh, risk averse when it comes to how we look at spending our incentive budget, for example, right? Like, and the reason why we haven't enabled permissionless incentives to incentivize behavior for be it getting supply and whatnot is because we're hyper focused on utilization. Like a lot of other projects that launched recently, they're like, oh, we got this amount of GPUs and that amount of GPUs, and ultimately, if we look at how much of those GPUs are actually being used, it's sub 1%, and that's bad, right? So we focus heavily on actual usage metrics and actual adoption in terms of utilization and whatnot, and not worry about vanity numbers in terms of just showing numbers for the sake of showing numbers, which obviously, and the reason people do that is to quote unquote pump, right? Like we don't do that mechanics. And Akash's performance has been way better in bear markets, right? Like, and the reason for that is like when all the attention goes away from be it memes and being all these like extra stuff that we get with crypto. Like last year it was NFTs, and no, last time it was NFTs, and now it's all memes, right? Like,
Yeah.
so have all these like different cycles that track different sort of like hyper volatile assets. Once the attention towards them goes down, people look back at fundamentals, right? So Akash is one of those projects that's been around for a long time, and people are looking at fundamentals, they look at Akash, and that's a place we want to be at, right? And that's a place both not only from like retail are looking at Akash, but from legislators, right, looking at Akash, right? So
Yeah.
recently I was on the Hill. We do quite a lot of lobbying work because crypto in US is at a stage where unless we take a proactive approach in meeting legislators and regulators, we're not going to make a difference when it comes to making crypto legal in US. Like right now, we can't even do airdrops to users. We can't sell tokens for money, tokens for cash to users that want to use Akash, right? Like, how do you
Yeah.
expect people to get Akash tokens? Because there's so many challenges right now that's preventing projects like Akash and others in the whole DePin arena to even deliver value to our users. So our challenge from a regulatory standpoint is like, how can we get a normal tool set, are allowed to do certain things that traditional companies are allowed to, that we cannot, right? Like you can go purchase uh, a gift card or a points card from Target and pay using credit card. Why can't you purchase points to deploy on Akash using the credit card? Why are we treated as a money services business when you do that, right? Simple things you don't think about are make a huge difference in people using a car. So we got to fight that fight as a crypto founder. And I'm so excited that all the conversations that I had on Hill, we met like several senators and congressmen, their staff, and several committees, be it financial committee, be it commerce and trade committees, and all these committees that have jurisdiction over AI and crypto.
Yeah.
Uh, all of them agree. I would say like 98% of them we met agree that It is better when cloud is decentralized. It is better when AI is open sourced. It is just better for Americans and the world. And a lot of them knew about Akash. In fact, the committee folks knew about Akash. And I was surprised because I anticipate we don't really do a lot of the Capitol Hill and lobbying work, right? I mean, but once you go and talk to some of these regulators, and one of them was like, Akash is a kind of example project that we like to see in crypto because
Yeah.
absolutely makes sense. Like, yeah, cloud is a common good, like hands down, because all of us use cloud and all of us pay a cloud tax without even realizing we're paying a cloud tax. And yet it's this opaque thing that nobody knows what's going on, right? And that is fundamentally bad to society. So cloud is a common good, and that's the mission of Akash.
Yeah,
And
I think it's one of those projects too that I think, again, there aren't a lot of projects that are working on a real outcome and one that's now discussed. So I think it's maybe not surprising to see so many people paying attention. Catching up.
and DePin as a sector is gaining steam, right? And that's really, I think, the exciting part, because when we go to the Hill, our biggest request is we want regulation, but we don't want the same regulation as an NFT or a DeFi project, right?
Yeah.
Because we are utility. We are, not financial use cases. We are real cloud, real value. I mean, not. I'm not saying finance is not real value, but finance is playing with money. We're not playing with money, right? Like, so treat us like a utility. Treat us like infrastructure, your utility that's beneficial to the society, and let regulators or legislators that way, right? And people are falling. People are receptive to that message, and I'm very excited. I think and recently we can see quite a lot of work, right? Like Akash is approved in New York, and it's a big deal for Akash to be available in New York. I mean, New York is one of the most difficult regulatory
It is.
landscape in America when it comes to anything money related, and they have bit license requirements and whatnot. And for them to approve something like AKT is a big deal, because that's a recognition that AKT is not like a financial use case, right? And that adds
Yeah.
more legitimacy. And we had listed in Upbit in Korea, and a lot of Korean exchanges, right? Upbit and whatnot. And Korea has gotten extremely strict when it comes to anything crypto, thanks to Do Kwon and gang, right? I mean, that debacle, right? Like, so since then, Korea has been extremely off limits. But seeing Akash approved with a Korean won pair, which is a KRW pair, is a big deal, because that requires different levels of approval from folks in the government. In Korea, I think since the last debacle, all the exchanges are now share information, and with the government, there's a lot of regulatory approval required, and we're seeing projects like Akash getting approved, which is a great indication of is a great thing for crypto projects like Akash and DePin in general, right? So
Yeah.
uh, so I think we're seeing a lot of positive win, and Trump potentially in talks to talk at a Bitcoin conference means a big deal, right? I mean, we are talking about an American president talking about at a Bitcoin conference and taking Bitcoin as an election issue, and that is an incredible indication, right? So overall, I think crypto is here to stay. If Trump wins, even better, right? Like, but even the outcome is otherwise is also good. Only thing I'll be afraid of in terms of in the policy landscape is I do not want crypto to be bipartisan, and that's why when we go lobby, we talk to both sides of the aisle, and and super exciting. If you look at Fit 21, 72 or 71 Democrats voted for crypto. I mean, it's very go on the Hill. It's very obvious that a lot of the Republicans.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the questions I wanted to ask, and now that we do have time to fit it in, is basically, I guess, when you mix all those things together, right? When you talk about a shifting political landscape, use cases now being accepted in the U.S., and you talk about where Akash as a project is, and kind of globally the adoption rate that you're seeing as well. What's kind of the expectation for where you want to be at the end of the year when you put together all of the things? What's the metric, the roadmap that you're hoping to hit?
I do not like to put forward-looking statements in general, and I'm very weary about sharing where we want to go in terms of adoption numbers. But what I like to see end of the year is more, a lot more AI folks that are non-crypto using Akash or talking about Akash than crypto AI folks. I want to see that shift, and that's very important shift because we're already seeing some of that, right? Andrew Gao, who's a very popular AI researcher at Stanford. He's very influential, as a matter of fact, on Twitter. Got about 100,000 followers and whatnot. He's regularly talking about Akash, and he really likes Akash. He's trained this model called Cicero, which I believe is, did I get that right? Which I believe is a first pre-trained model in Latin. It's a Latin native model uh, done on Akash, and that's a
Mm-hmm.
big win, making history right there. He's done these amazing projects that do mid-journey analysis and whatnot, and all that is being done on Akash, right? So I want to see. There's another person called Miguel Teresa, who's also doing incredible work, AI researcher, right? Non-crypto user using Akash. So I want to see more non-crypto users using Akash, and that is going to be very, very important milestone for us. And come 2025, I want to see that outcome results in actual quantifiable numbers. And I honestly think, if we remove the barrier from a user experience standpoint that is
Mm-hmm.
challenging right now, for context, a conversion rate is less than 1% from people that want to use Akash to people that are able to use Akash coming from our website, and that's bad. I want to see the conversion rate, right? Like, and I want to see the conversion rate in 30%, right?
Yeah.
And we're doing a lot of investment in that, getting to the 30% conversion rate. Now it's not about the numbers uh, in terms of actual quantifiable values, but if you can get the 30% conversion rate, then all we need to do is increase the top of the funnel, right?
Mm-hmm.
That top of the funnel is not something that we're very good at top of funnel. We don't have concerns about getting more top of the funnel, and there are so many different ways you can get top of the funnel, both organic as well as paid. But the real challenge is converting from that from folks that come on the top to people using it. Because once we nail that, then that's just about scale, right?
Well, I think that's been like one of the issues across the board in Web3, just because of, like you said, it's very difficult in that funnel to understand if you're working with a Web2 user or a Web3 user. You throw Web3 elements at a Web2 user, they're gonna get the hell out of there. So that's definitely something that even
We,
we've seen.
we can. There are techniques now that enable us to know whether it's a Web3 user or Web2 user. I mean, you can literally do a snapshot of the browser plugin, so it can be like, hey, is there a MetaMask or a Kepler? Well, that's probably a Web3 user, right? And you can have intention based like analysis that comes pretty accurately, right? It comes to predicting whether Web2 or Web3. But I'm interested in users that do not have any crypto wallets on their browser using Akash,
Mm-hmm.
and that is a big deal for us. And I want to see that number. And we'll probably start publishing those numbers sometime soon, but I think we should, now that I think about it. I want to see, like, how many people come to Akash console, have this wallet, and or don't. And out of that, how many people are converting, right?
Yeah.
People that have a wallet, people that don't have a wallet. And we'll start publishing those numbers. And I think if we succeed in what we're doing when it comes to user experience, that's non-custodial and serving a Web2 user, we crack the nut for Web3 user
Yeah.
experience. We'll create a whole new world of Web3 adoption that the world hasn't seen. And it's very important to do that non-custodial. You don't want to do custodial at all, right?
I think
And that
that's the holy grail that a lot of Web3 projects are after, is kind of figuring out that nut itself. And I think, there is one last question I wanted to get to you, because you did mention kind of all the non-crypto users, but there are still some pretty big names in crypto that are turning to Akash. At your guys' first conference down in Consensus, you had Eric Voorhees out there chatting with you on the stage about his own AI product now in Venice. I think one of the main stressors there is something we talked about last time you were on the show, which is just about AI and centralized AI companies, and the idea of open source products maybe potentially averting or solving some of those big fears. I mean, how have you kind of seen that become front and center for kind of the Akash selling point? Why is it so important that you have people like Eric Voorhees building open source AI on Akash, and what does it solve?
Very good question. So Akash, as it stands now, is the de facto infrastructure for all things crypto AI, like hands down, right? Anything that's not infrastructure related, that means anything that's an app it's launching on Akash first, right? So we saw Venice AI, which is Eric Voorhees' project. Eric, as you know, is an incredible leader. Some call him the oldest man in crypto, but he's been around. I mean, if you think about Eric's background, is wow. I mean, in 2012 timeframe, after the Mount Gox went down, uh, Eric's platform he built was responsible for 40% of all Bitcoin transactions. I mean,
Yeah.
the man is etched in history, right? So uh, he is very value driven. He's been in Bitcoin since it was sub dollar, right? So he's very value driven. He's not a guy who's just motivated by money. He's very motivated by values and permissionless and the foundations of what crypto was built on. Him embracing Akash is a big deal because he sees those values realized in Akash, and he really admires the permissionlessness, the non-custodialness, and open pricing, and and the privacy guarantees and the unstoppable guarantees. Right, Akash gives for something like Venice, which is censorship resistance. A sovereign LLM, like you can do on Venice things that you cannot do on Midjourney. Like right now, if you try to in this hot political season we have between Biden and Trump, most services ban you from anything political now because no one wants. Everybody wants to stay away from controversial. Only content you can create this political season is on Venice. Like if you want to do
Yeah.
anything with Biden and Trump, and those are some of the just non-censorable stuff that you can do on Akash, right? And Akash is not going to, and Eric knows Akash cannot pull the plug on Venice. But if you do anything you know, politically motivated on Amazon, they're going to pull a plug. So
Yeah.
having those guarantees is very important for crypto to thrive and for applications that are delivering crypto AI to the world. And we are seeing in every major platform now launching in crypto AI is using Akash. We saw with Flock, an incredible demo we saw with Flock. We saw Prime Intellect, which is doing federated training, right? Flock is also doing federated training, different approaches, but amazing. We saw with uh, uh, with neural AI, another incredible like three text to 3D generator, right?
Hmm.
Um, um, 3D generator, text to 3D, all launching on Akash. We saw something called Shaga, which is another app launching on Akash, right? A lot of the primary, mainstream or like major crypto AI apps all use Akash for a reason because it works. It really works.
Hmm.
You cannot take things away from Akash, and it's been around for a long time. It's got a great brand, great community. As you saw in Akash Accelerator, the conference we had more live demos than just regular talks because people use Akash, and we're also seeing quite a lot of university activation, right? So, University of Texas, a lot of their AI folks are using Akash, and we have a formal program now. We're going to announce very soon.
Yeah.
Um, that we've been talking about it quite a lot, so it's an open secret at this point. But if we want to go more formal with University of Texas, and we are seeing with Rochester Institute of Technology as well, we're seeing with several other institutions, adopting Akash because students are priced out, right? They cannot get GPUs like on Amazon. We saw a story on Semaphore the other day that talked about the Cornell student Ishan, who's actually trying to get A100s on Amazon. He couldn't, right? So Akash is like the de facto platform for a lot of the students, and it falls in line with how Nvidia did when Nvidia launched CUDA, right? Nvidia is not the only company to GPUs, right? And there are other companies that have GPUs, but Nvidia's biggest innovation was CUDA, and they went to universities because
Hmm.
I knew that if you can make their life simple, these researchers become employees and become leaders in their in time, and they take the tooling with them, right? And that's
Yeah.
one of the strategies that worked really well, and we are leveraging the strategy, right? Not by design; it just happened organically. I mean, like students didn't come use Akash because we went and approached them, but now we are taking that more seriously, right? So we're seeing this next generation, like crypto is I consider next generation of technology, right? Crypto AI embracing Akash, universities embracing Akash is a foundation that we want to build upon. And now also we going and going after bigger ones like actual AI companies that are Web two traditional companies using Akash. And that's going to be our bigger sort of like challenge and investments, right? So
Yeah. It's been
and
fascinating to watch. I mean, all of those things coming together in 2024 when AI is talked about so much from a mainstream side and seeing everything, as I said before, kind of come through on the crypto side. Both things to talk about. Both fit in on this interview on Coinage this time around. Greg Osuri, thank you again for coming on, man. I can't thank you enough. And again, as you mentioned off the top, Coinage being a supporter here in running our own validator. Thank you for staking there, and for anyone in the Akash community, always happy to play our part as well. But Greg, thanks again, man. Appreciate it. Congrats.
Thank you.